They signed up, but they're not here.
All right, welcome back. We've changed the set, and we're moving on to Act 2.
Action.
Three, isn't it?
Yeah. So we're going to open up the workshop. First, if I have it up here. First item on the workshop is the audit committee report. So, Mr. Daniels, give it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members. Just going to be quick and get out of your way, but first item of business for us was we welcomed our fifth member, Miss Mary Foreman, in and put her right to work with working with Mr. Smith and trying to deal with the facilities. Do we do it or not? Getting great counsel from her. Glad to have her back. As you heard a little bit of, CRI is completing its responsibilities for us. Their human resources audit is nearing completion, and they're presenting their report to us at the audit committee meeting in May. We will then forward it to you with our recommendations. They're trying to clean up all their post-audit reviews. These are questions that remain when they finish a particular thing. Some of the finance questions out at MTC is what's hanging over us right now. They've had such turnover that every time we go in there, the person that's there now doesn't know what. So we're dealing with that, but he's supposed to get those finished. We talked about the facilities department, so we're sending them off and then welcoming in RSM. Their engagement is coming to you in, I think, the next board packet?
Yes.
Yes. The next board meeting, you'll have their engagement letter that we've seen and approved, recommend the acceptance. I've been coordinating with their incoming team leader, Matt Blondell, trying to reduce the learning curve, and if with your permission, I'm going to try and put the manager of the incoming auditors with Mark Smith, who's the manager of the outgoing. In a commercial audit, every auditor meets with his predecessor, at least communicates what issues are there, what things here. My purpose here is more to try and reduce the learning curve, speed it up so that they know who's in what area, who you're going to need to talk to about this, rather than coming in and having to learn it. And they still will. Anytime a new group comes in, there's a lot of learning, but trying to reduce that and make it more effective. So we're hoping there. But they're anxious to go. They're going to start off with the deep risk assessment that we're required to do every 5 years. We don't expect to have a whole lot assigned to them except for that as they initially start at the September meeting. We hope to have at least a preliminary assessment of what they're coming up with and then look to the rest of the year what we're going to have them look at. We don't want to just go out there and ready, fire, aim. We'd rather have it more focused. This year, we're not spending all of the budget money. Again, we want to look at what needs to be looked at, not just go out and spend time. Coming into the new year with the budget, I understand we're looking at the CFOC aspect, and we're looking at having RSM do that particular engagement. So the budget will need to probably be adjusted to some of that in our timing and what we do. We'll just have to see where that goes. Purvis Gray is coming in as our external auditor, even though the school or the Auditor General is looking at our schools this year. We still have the internal accounts. In prior years, we've had the external auditor that's doing the internal accounts has generally looked at every school, at least for a few things, a few items. There's some question as to whether or not that is actually required or not. Some schools, districts do it, some districts don't. Purvis Gray came in and recommended that we do a reduced sampling where they look at all the high schools and then they take a sample of the middle schools and the elementary schools. We did an in-depth review of what Cherry Beckert had come with, had them provide their management representations. We looked at it in great detail, and with the findings, we felt that doing it on a sampling basis for the middle schools and the high schools was appropriate. We haven't been coming up with a lot of disparities that would make it step out. If we have turnover in schools, principals, bookkeepers, we may add that specifically to the list, but other than that, they're going to look and do it on a sampling basis. That's what's in their letter, what's been approved, and we recommend it. Right now, I understand that Purvis Gray and Miss Rachel's office is already coordinating on what they're looking for, and Kathy's coming up with data, sending it to them, so that's moving forward. And, bless you.
Bless you.
They're trying to get in before the school year ends and get some of the action going. We do have the coordinating meeting with the Auditor General on Monday. I had a prior conflict. Ms. Metzner's going to cover for me. She's very experienced, very detail-oriented. She'll do a good job there. And then we'll talk about that in the May meeting, what they come up with there, what aspects are things we need to do. I was originally scheduled to be out of town for the May meeting, but my engagement has moved back a week, so I will be at that board meeting. One of the things that'll be on the agenda is going to be election of a new chairman. I don't know, it'll be me or somebody else, but with a new school year coming up, we felt that it's important to at least provide the opportunity. And I kind of got, hi, the railroad's here, and I want us to have a bigger discussion and open as to what we're going to do and what we're going to do. And I wouldn't, we'll just see where that goes, but I wanted you to know you may have a new chairman up after the May meeting. And that's where we're at. We're moving along. We do need more members because Mr. Wagner is rotating off on July 1. So we'll be back down to 4 members. We're trying to recruit, but it's amazing how people don't want to do that. And it's not just here. I'm finding in other volunteer activities I'm involved in, it's getting harder and harder to find anybody to come out and do anything.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
you know, I was taught you got to help people, and people don't seem to want to do that. So we'll just deal with what we have. Now, any questions that I can answer to any of you?
I do. Was there any discussion about doing the joint CFOC and Audit Committee meeting at all?
I understand a lot of the problem with doing it in a joint fashion is the language in these particular ordinances, that they have to be the committee, it has to be them, and until we get to the next cycle and we can write it
Okay.
up again, unless you name us as part of that citizens committee, they are the ones responsible. We are glad to provide any resources, do whatever we can, but yeah, we'll do what you tell us. We would love to work with them and have that go in an efficient fashion. I know some of the members want to, some don't, but when we look at what has transpired over the last several years with those reports, I think there's only one direction to go, and that's to get a professional in there doing it. And
And
we can
that's
make
what
it as part of our
that's what my
budget or-
hope is with the new auditor.
Yes,
Is to have that in their contract, that they will be working with the CFOC.
that's one of the things we're working with. I'm trying
All
to
right.
get representative out of RSM to meet with the chair of the CFOC. I
Okay,
haven't been able to set that meeting up. I understand you probably want to be there too,
of course.
but trying to get the communication started with them early rather
Okay.
than late. You know, I'm willing to do whatever I can to help. I know the others on the committee are too, but you know, we may need to have some more discussion. Maybe we'll sit down with you
Yeah,
guys.
maybe after your
Just to-
May meeting, then. we
Yes.
could- And that, yeah, that would work out well.
But we would like them to be starting on the CFOC very quickly after
Right.
the year ends, so that we're not running into the time deadlines and the calendar
Exactly.
deadlines that we've had in the past.
I appreciate that.
And they know that, but we have to see what's in the budget for next year and
Mhm.
that you've provided us, and then we'll detail out.
Right.
I mean, I'll refer to legal, I guess, when I'm done with this to see what they think. But the referendum, I mean, yes, we have charters, but the referendum just says for the mill, for the millage, that we just have a independent oversight. Like, it doesn't, you don't have to name it the CFOC, right? So like, you all are independent, you know, or already, you guys are independent, right? So theoretically, you all could have been done, you know, the audit committee could have been the one from the very beginning to do it, quite frankly. I mean, 2018, right? Like, reverse back. But I know the charter is something different. Like, we're gonna have, I don't know what that looks like to have to tweak that. I say this to merge. I think that both committees, I mean, you just mentioned it, are obviously small, right? Nobody wants to come in and join, losing people going off, et cetera, et cetera. And I know that maybe the CFOC, that committee is not having the professional designation that the audit committee does. But I think that if you could, if in my opinion, combine the two, I think it'd be good for both. I mean, I think it, you know, I mean, they learn, and maybe hopefully, you know, y'all would learn from them, whatever. But I don't, and so, I mean, I guess I'm not saying today we're going to sit here and talk about that. I would like to know, though, from the audit committee, is that, I mean, you guys have already expressed it's a good idea to have RSM, you know, to do it, and I agree with you, to do the report like that. I personally, from a practicality standpoint, like 3 or 4 in each, I mean, let's just combine them and make one, whatever you want to call it, right? And I think from the professional designation standpoint, you all are still there to control the, you know, from the audit, you all working with RSM, you guys are still there to control that, whether it's new people that don't have that designation or not. But I don't know what the charter,
The language.
like, would we have to do anything with the charter again
If I
to
may,
combine those two?
one of the things that I understand is holding that back is the definition of who's eligible to be on the audit committee.
Gotcha.
It is very specific as far as professional criteria, experience. Some of the people on the CFOC don't meet that.
Sure.
And again, you're the ones that set that criteria, so we could do that, but I'm sure Mr. Dial expand more, but I understand one of the big hurdles is that
Yeah,
we've got specific type of individuals that are specified to be members of the audit committee,
sure.
and the CFOC membership doesn't necessarily meet that. But as far as putting, you know, the idea of fresh blood, even if they're not a full professional, somebody that has been dedicated to the schools, that's good stuff.
Yeah. And I know, you know, we obviously set the charter. I mean, we can kind of tweak it how we
Right.
want. We can say 75% of the membership of the audit committee has to have those credentials, or, you know, something.
Right.
To where you could have, you know, or however we wanted to word that. I know that's not today, like right now, we're not necessarily discussing those charters and things. I don't want legal to be like, oh, you didn't have this. So I mean, we don't need to get in a huge thing. Maybe that's something that we work on before the next school year in a workshop again. Is how to do it. You
Throw
look
it
at
on
the
there.
charters. You know, if we want to, if the board wants to look into that, and I just say it from a bodies count, right? Like, you know, 3 or 4 and 1, 2 or 3. I mean, it's just it's a lot to ask for people, you know. So why not combine forces and try to do as best as possible? Yeah.
Just a couple thoughts. I don't have the resolution that created the CFOC with me, but I have the charter. And so Mr. Daniels makes a good point. The audit committee has a very specialized membership that was aimed at auditing. But that said, I don't see anything legally that would impede combining the two into one body.
Okay.
So, and you'd have to look at that, think about it, explore. Do you allow members on that aren't CPAs but have some kind of financial, you know, background that would be beneficial, things like that. But it appears the CFOC has a very limited role that they play that's tied to those millage funds.
Right.
And the audit committee has a bigger role, and now we have the auditor selection committee. We sort of combined into that as well. I don't see, just looking at it casually, that there's a legal impediment to combining it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Anything else? Any questions?
No. Did my thing work?
I did not jump into the workshop. So
Oh,
yes,
gosh.
but-
Okay.
sorry.
Thanks. No worries. No, Mr. Dye kind of hit the nail on the head with what I wanted to say. I will volunteer to write a draft charter to update to what we're talking about. I would, just to expand on what Mr. Dye said, we have to keep in mind that the CFOC, if we were to combine, the work of the CFOC and the report it produces is just one small piece of the work the full audit committee does. So and we don't have to get into this today, but just a thought. We could create I feel like I've said this before too, create a subcommittee within the audit committee
Sure.
that rolls those members into. And so, for example, when the audit committee sets up their agenda, they could, for the time the CFOC members, or CFOC is the topic, or excuse me, let me use the right words. When the 1 mil report is the topic, those members would be engaged in the discussion. They'd share all the things they've been through all these past years, and that, Jim, to your point, that's the expertise they're bringing in. But then they wouldn't have to sit through the other 2 hours of the meeting, because that's other audits or
Other subcommittees,
PARs,
yeah.
whatever the case may be. So I wouldn't want to commit the CFOC members to like, hey, you got to be at a 3 to 4 hour meeting, every other month, when the majority of the time spent is not going to be talking about their item. So, but I fully support. I respect them. I respect their work. They do have something to offer, like Jim said. But I can take a run at a draft with approval of the board.
Sure.
Sure.
And then we can go from there, and then we can kind of fine tune it. I do have just 2 quick things for Mr. Daniel. Just as a reminder, so at the next meeting, the board will approve, hopefully, the board will approve the engagement letter for RSM, and so that will allow Mr. Blondell to actually start the work of the school year that is coming up, the financial year that's coming up, right? So that connection between Mark Smith at CRI and Mr. Blondell at RSM, that we would have to really kind of include that in the audit plan for the 25-26 year, would we not? Or I guess could we do that retroactively? Because we don't expect him to just come in and do hours of work for free. I mean, that would have to be part of their plan, correct?
I wasn't going to ask them to do a whole bunch of hours, but just to engage in a lunch. I was going to buy them lunch, and
Okay, that's what I was after. How many hours do you think this would be?
I'm going to do it over lunch, but just, there's always some institutional knowledge that could be
Right.
passed on, and if we can get some of that in RSM's hands, the impact on staff will be reduced, will be more effective.
Right.
And, no, I wasn't expecting him to come do any work till he has an engagement letter. And then we not only have to have the engagement letter, we have to have the budget approval for that, do we not? Before the first of the next school year, if that's what the contract is for? If they're gonna do any work, would we not need to have an amendment? I don't know.
Yeah, the scope of work is going to the board on April 29. Purchasing has already loaded it up. They've actually indicated they're waiting for you to make sure you're weighing in on it, but that's behind the scenes.
I can't
So
do
anyhow, and having the predecessor auditor open up their records for the incoming auditor is a practice that all auditors do. The Auditor General is already submitting its letter for permission to look at Cherry Becker's work papers. And if they have any questions related to that, they then pull that in or make that particular discussion. Now, that is not normally something that I have seen as far as budget work. It's just something people do as a courtesy behind the scenes.
Right.
So I would assume it would be natural at the same time. And if this is going to the board April 29, it's very likely that you may even see RSM kind of similar to way Purvis Gray is, even though their school year starts on July 1st, they're already asking some interim stuff, getting information from our group before July 1st gets started. So I would imagine RSM probably may be doing the same thing. So this inquiry to look at the predecessor's audits, work papers, could occur even before July 1st.
That's what I was after,
Yeah.
is, yeah, how does that process normally work?
Right.
And do we have to develop? Thank you. Okay, that's it for me.
All right.
I'll just
Yeah.
want to weigh in and say I would be in favor of combining the two, and the more we can streamline the process and create less burden on the staff, I think is appropriate. I mean, these functions have to be done, but the more we can streamline it and combine it and make it less of a burden on the staff, I'm for that. Thanks, that's all.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, Jim.
All right, so now I'm gonna put us in recess. Now we'll take our lunch break. We'll say 1:30. We'll come on back for the rest. So 37 minutes.
Awesome, sounds good.
Recess.
everybody.
Hi, welcome back from our recess from the for the workshop for lunch. Gonna jump into public comments before we get into the rest of our items for our workshop. We've got 2 public comments: Stephen Zickafust and Ryan Murphy. Yes, I do not see. I can guess what he was going to talk about.
Yeah, pretty sure. Good afternoon. Before I get into what I'm going to chat just about real quick, I just want to say thank you. You've traveled to Tallahassee, you've gone to sporting events, you've gone to the plays. It's really clear, we're all educators. We're all trying to do the right thing for the most kids possible. And it's just evident. Knowing the times that you spent traveling to Tallahassee and back and forth, and that's just not, it goes for here, but it goes to staff, it goes to superintendent. We're all just trying to do the right thing, and I just want to recognize that and appreciate your time, okay? I appreciate the time we've been given to talk about student achievement and the vital role charter schools have played in its success. I want to stay in the spirit of the outcomes and fairness and accountability roles and take a moment to reflect on how this issue aligns with the district's own guiding values. I reviewed the goals and leadership standards this board uses to evaluate district leadership and performance, which is on this afternoon's agenda. And when we hold those next to the half-penny sales tax conversation, some meaningful questions come out. On the goal of increasing student achievement, which is a district goal, we all agree that this is a top priority. And as we've discussed, over 12,000 charter students are actively contributing to the district's academic outcomes that directly impact how the state sees Manatee County. So if we're counting those students when it helps our grade, why are we not supporting them when it comes to funding from the half-penny sales tax? Another district goal is ensuring safe, respectful, and equitable learning conditions for all students. But how do we reconcile the fact that charter students who attend public schools, take the same tests, and held to the same standards receive none of the capital funding their families help generate? I don't believe that's the message the district intends to send, but it's the one that's being felt. One of the board's standards speaks directly to using district resources and improving outcomes. Well, charter schools are doing exactly that. They're not only delivering strong academic results across key metrics, they're doing it at a lower cost per student, contributing a current minimum taxpayer savings of between $160 and $200 million in avoided construction costs. And yet we're excluding a group of students who are held to the same standards but given fewer resources. The question then becomes, why are we punishing performance and savings just because it's coming from a public charter school? There's one more standard. It's on integrity and student-centered leadership. This metric asserts that students' needs should guide recommendations and decisions. Not some students, not students based on what kind of public school they attend, just students. And right now, over 12,000 public school students already enrolled, already achieving, are being left out of this funding, of the funding conversation entirely. Their needs are real, their contributions are measurable. But when it comes to the portion of the half-penny sales tax, they're invisible. This morning, you heard how charter schools students are helping to lift the district's grades. We're simply asking that the same student-centered principles that guide the leadership in this district also fund decisions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ryan Murphy, going once, going twice. Yeah. All right. Let's move on to the overview of the 26-27 calendar. Actually, you want to move to the next thing?
Yes, Chairman, or if you want, you could take the 4th topic now.
Nope, he's here.
He's ready.
Mad
So-
dash.
Chairman,
You have after-school detention for being tardy
I apologize.
with me.
With you.
I'm already there.
I'd like to
so-
see your tardy pass, please.
I'm not used to having a 30-minute lunch break. I don't know.
That's why I said.
Chairman, just for the record, as you did at the meeting this morning, since we had a public commenter on a topic that's already been calendared for a board workshop, maybe we just acknowledge that we are scheduled to talk about this specific issue in May.
Yes.
Where the staff will provide a presentation and a full perspective, both from a legal perspective and a financial perspective.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so calendar.
Awesome. Good afternoon again.
Yeah, go ahead.
Chairman Choate, board members, Superintendent Weissong. About this time last year, I brought to you the work of the calendar committee working on the 25-26 calendar, which was adopted and published online for our families. And over the past month to 2 months, I've been working with a group of people that formed the 26-27 academic calendar committee to work on a draft calendar for that school year. And really the whole purpose of this is so that by the time we, ideally by the time we leave school in May and school's over, our families know what the academic calendar looks like 2 years from now so that they can plan accordingly, and our teachers can plan accordingly as well. So really the whole purpose of the academic calendar is that it provides all of our stakeholders with all the key dates for the academic year. The school start and end dates, breaks, early release days, holidays, in-service, survey windows, exam windows, and hurricane makeup days, which, as you know, are very, very important. And this calendar committee consists of a fairly large group of people. We have parents and community members from some different SACs within our school district. We have reps from MEA and AFSCME. We have elementary, middle, and high school principals on the committee. And new to last year's committee and continuing this year's committee, we also have 2 high school students on the committee, and that's been an initiative from Superintendent Weissong, who really wants to include student voice in these school district processes. And we had 2 exemplary young people on this year's calendar committee, one from Palmetto High School and one from Southeast, who were just absolutely wonderful representatives of our students throughout the district and provided the calendar committee valuable input. And then you can see we convene representatives from all the following departments throughout the school district of Manatee County, and really it's because the academic calendar impacts all of these groups in different ways. And so we really need to get everyone around the table and talk through the dates so that we're not overlooking anything when it comes to our test administration or how we pay people or transportation. So it's really a huge group effort. And you know, for the last few years, we've convened this committee online using Microsoft Teams. This is the first year we've now gone back to hosting the committee in person. So we've been meeting in this building in room 203, and I think that's added another dimension to the work of the committee, because I think being face-to-face with everyone in the room, you have more robust and rich conversations around how this calendar impacts all stakeholders. And just a quick reminder of some of the requirements for the academic calendar. Some of it's preferential, but a lot of the academic calendar is governed by state statute and requirements and school board policy. As you know, the length of the standard school year is 180 days for our students and 196 days for our teachers. And the earliest day we can start school is August 10th per Florida statute. And that really imposes a pretty tight structure on our academic year. There's not a lot of wiggle room within that structure. If you want to start school as close to August 10th as possible and end school by the beginning of June, it puts some tight restrictions on the calendar and doesn't lead to a lot of options within the school year. And then, of course, we need to divide the school year into 2 semesters approximately equal in length. They don't have to be exactly equal in length, just close. So in front of you, you should have color copies of the 2 versions that the calendar committee is recommending for community input. And I'll just kind of walk you through version A, and then we'll talk through version B very quickly. They're very, very similar in structure because there was a lot of
Can't find a single
There,
difference.
I know, I just found it.
there was a lot of
October
consensus
2nd
on the
instead of
committee.
October 16th.
Yeah, I'm like,
That's
where's
the only
the
difference,
difference?
right?
We went through 4 or 5 different draft calendars,
Okay.
but by the time all of the different input and state requirements were included, there were some things that the committee really kind of insisted on being structured the same between them, and that left very little flexibility between other things.
Gotcha.
So you can see that the calendar this year actually lines up really nicely, starting on August 10th for the first day of school on a Monday. I know sometimes we like that first week to be kind of a short week so we can reset after a few days, but it works out this that year, 26, 27, to start on a Monday. Pre-plan the week before. Your green days, like the days on the 25th of September and October 7th on calendar A, those are elementary early release days. We have those in the calendar so that our elementary schools can host parent-teacher conference nights. And we do those twice a year, once in the first quarter and once in the third quarter. You see we have Veterans Day, Thanksgiving holiday. Your red days are your Wednesday professional learning early release. We have 2 of those throughout the school year. That would be on the 28th and or October 28th and the 10th of February. You kind of go into December and you have 2 weeks off for winter holidays. Then on that Monday the 4th, teachers come back for a record day. Tuesday the 5th would be a professional learning day, and then the 6th, that Wednesday, students would come back. Again, you see the holidays in blue, as well as your early release days in red and green. March is where it gets a little bit interesting. You have some early release days and record days that end the that end the third quarter at the March 11th and 12th. Then you have spring break, and then you have a short week that ends with Good Friday off. And then there's kind of a long push right to testing there. So you have April and May, which are pretty straight through. That'll be kind of the lead up into testing, and then testing in May. With the last day for students on the 27th of May and the last day for teachers on the 28th.
Yeah, that's a question real quick.
Yeah.
Mr. Jensen, when do we test? Well, first of all, what tests, like at least state level tests, what tests do we do, and then when do we do those tests approximately?
So there's really 2 big, we have obviously the PM1 window in August, September, and the PM2 window in December, January.
Okay.
But the kind of culminating state testing, writing happens in April. So our writing test kind of is in April.
Beginning, end of April, or is it like a?
Beginning of April.
Really?
We've already, for example, this year, we've already administered the writing test to over 95% of our students.
There must be a good reason, sorry to interrupt your answer, why we don't wait another month and get another month of instruction in before we do, when I say we, I'm sure the state probably requires this, but why not get another month of instruction in and then do the test? There must be a good reason.
You mean like do the test in June?
No, you said we've already started our writing tests, right? So school doesn't end until what, the middle of May or something around there.
Correct.
So
So
why
the
do we test so early?
The
That's all.
state sets the testing windows. So writing, right now, they set April essentially as our writing window.
Okay.
And then our PM3 window can't be started before May 1st.
Okay.
And so really, May is just loaded with tests. When you think about the reading test, the math test, then you have AP tests, IB tests, ACE tests. You have
Your exams.
you have so many exams running that month. We have civics, all the different EOCs, biology. So you just have so many exams happening. It's like a very loaded up calendar. It's also why there was a really robust conversation around that spring break week. So one of the initial drafts of the calendar had spring break week the week of the 22nd because it would overlap with Good Friday. And the calendar committee rejected it for 2 reasons. One, you would end the third quarter, start the fourth quarter for a week, then take a break, and then continue the fourth quarter, and they didn't like interrupting the fourth quarter like that. But second, it would actually save you a day it would save you a day because Good Friday would be incorporated into spring break week, which would mean we'd leave school a day earlier. So the student final day would be the 26th of May. And that would actually, just taking 1 day out of May would really impact the testing calendar because we have so few testing days in May. And so that's an example of like a small change in March having a huge implication for testing in May.
Okay, so other than the writing test, which they start that early because there's so much else going on in May, they just need to get it going, they got to grade it or something, or?
I think it's leaving time for scoring,
And stuff
but
like
also currently that writing test isn't part of the school accountability formula.
Oh,
So that writing test doesn't factor into the school grade calculations.
okay.
So I think all the the assessments that really impact school grades begin May 1st.
Which makes sense because I would think you would want to have maximum instruction before you take the test. So
Absolutely.
you want to take them in the last month of the year. Okay.
Which is also why you want to start school as soon as possible on August 10th.
Right.
Or as close to it as possible.
Great. Thanks for your answer. That's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you. I was hunting between A and B. I cannot find the difference, but I do obviously see in October the early release. I think so. With the questions about the early release are like the 25th, 16th, 26th. I know it's for elementary for them to hold it back to school. Is there something in the contract that's got to be so many days apart or so many days inside? You know what I mean? Like, is this for? It's not for your quarterly report to your, like, from teacher to parent, because there's obviously one in September. So like, and I asked that if it's in the contract or anything, because I think if we're gonna have them, which is fine to have them, I think the easiest thing for parents is have it on the same like day of the, like, so if you're gonna do September, the 4th week in September, do it the 4th week in October. You got the 4th week in February, right? Those early releases. So that way parents know, oh, it's the 4th week.
Yeah, you
Instead of
have-
it's the 4th week in this month, but then this month is the 2nd, and then 2 months from now it's the 4th week again. Does that make sense? And if it's because of a timing thing, like, well, then that's why you did it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they're really in the contract it specifies that in the teacher contract, the MBA
Right.
contract, it specifies that essentially by releasing our elementary teachers early on these early release days and our students early on these days, we're kind of like giving the teachers the time that then we use as schools to create those parent-teacher conference nights, right? So it's kind of a trade-in
Right.
time. And so I believe, in general, from the teacher's perspective and MEA's perspective, trying to, if we're shooting for a conference night in first 9 weeks and in third 9 weeks, kind of trying to cluster those days close to when those conference nights are happening,
Okay.
is what their preference is.
Okay.
Which was the discussion we had around the timing of
Okay.
those days.
Yeah. I mean, I figured obviously it was for a reason. What was the next one? Oh, second thing. And this is, I mean, Dr. Weissong, I'll kind of refer to you, and we've talked about this actually several months ago. I know that I mean, look, hopefully we don't get hurricane season like we did this past one, right? But the reality is we may still get something, right? And I know we've talked about this. I mean, we haven't as a board, maybe, perhaps, but I would honestly be okay with getting rid of hurricane makeup days, and not. We obviously have to make up the days. I'm not saying that, but I mean having a designated quote unquote. These are the days.
Yeah.
Because I mean, the reality is, I mean, we spent a lot of time on the phone during during the fall, and the reality is, and you guys did a great job of filling and finding the days we had to fill. Veterans Day, et cetera, and so, and we did that because we didn't want to break up Thanksgiving, right? Like, you don't want to break up Thanksgiving, and the reality is that we're not going to break up Thanksgiving. Then let's not even put it out there.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because I think we'd all try as hard as we possibly can not to use Thanksgiving days. So that. Other than that, I mean, thank you for the hard work. I mean, it's probably not easy doing this. That would be my only suggestion is just don't even put hurricane days. Put an asterisk down here saying, hey, this is subject to change when a hurricane comes, but not necessarily the days.
Right.
Is that what?
So, Chairman, thank you for that question, because I asked the same question when I got this. I don't put my thumb on the committee or anything. I get the draft from Mr. Jensen when they're done, and so I asked the same question: why are we designating Thanksgiving again? So I'd just like Mr. Jensen to kind of summarize the conversation the committee had about makeup days, just so you can get some of that stakeholder feedback, and then I can share some more.
And this is where having our parents and students on the committee, I really think paid a lot of dividends for us. We had a robust conversation around hurricane days, obviously, because this year is fresh in everyone's mind. And so you can see we did indicate the 23rd and 24th as hurricane makeup days like we have in prior years. But we also added the 21st and 22nd of December as possible makeup days, as well as the 5th of January. We had the conversation around just not including any makeup days on the calendar. I do think that could potentially tie our hands, because if we don't have any approved days and we do need to make up days, then we're having to engage with, you know, the association and try to come to consensus, and it could slow down the process when other districts are more rapidly able to identify their plans. But we did talk about the need for flexibility, right? Because no one likes to interrupt Thanksgiving. Our parents said that they actually preferred the first 2 days of the December break relative to the first 2 days of Thanksgiving break, because you still get almost a 2-week vacation if you eat into winter break a little bit. And then, of course, that professional learning day on the 5th, teachers are already in attendance on that day. And so that's an easier day to bring students back a day earlier if we need to make up days. But obviously, everyone on the calendar committee hoped that none of these days would be necessary. But the intention in this configuration of the calendar was to provide the superintendent and the board as much flexibility as possible if we just had to quickly identify days for makeup.
Thank you. I didn't even see the ones in December as marked, so I appreciate that.
And
Yeah, no, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and Chairman, I think there are some other days on the calendar that would work, but I think the committee was trying to avoid designating days for which there may be conflicting language in our collective bargaining agreements.
Sure.
That then became the basis for why we were negotiating for flexibility, right? Specifically around, Veterans Day this year. Looking at, this calendar and thinking about hypotheticals, I see a number of possibilities, but they are going to require negotiation. And so if hypothetically our union said we're not willing to negotiate, then at some point we have to work with the days that are available. And that's where, if you need several days, that Thanksgiving and the winter break this year, or for this calendar in 26, 27, is an option.
Yeah.
Just because you're so far from the actual holidays that are in that winter break. So, and that's, I think, where each calendar is going to be a little different. I wish there was a perfect answer, on this, but that's the current thought. The committee did remove the designation of the Wednesday prior to Thanksgiving as a designated makeup day. I think as we discussed, as we worked through that process last fall, that's a day where if we just imposed that everybody had to come, I'd be concerned about staffing shortages and whatnot, and just coverage of schools. So I think the committee did a good job there in understanding the operational challenges of the day before Thanksgiving.
So
Are you in Granicus?
Yeah.
I am, but I don't have it in front of me, but now I do.
Okay. Just want to make sure that should I use this or not. We talked about this during my briefing, and I also came before the board a year ago to talk during public comment to talk about the calendar. I want to thank the calendar committee for working on this. This is not something that's easy to do, and I am very, very happy as looking at it from the teacher/parent perspective of winter break. Not the teachers not and staff not having to come back like 3 days before everybody else does. Because when we've had to come back on like a Thursday or a Friday, and then the kids don't come back until like the following Tuesday, we lose those days as teachers and staff, because we're now working when everybody else in the family is still on break. So the fact that we are not having those weekend days where we're back and the staff are back and they're not on break now because of the weekend, I like that everything is coming back and starting on a Monday. I really appreciate that very much. So I wanted to say thank you for that.
Thank you.
Obviously, there was a lot of discussion last year, or this past year, with all the hurricanes and Veterans Day. My thing is, the people who look at this calendar and work for the district will understand that this is what they want. It's I'm saying like around Thanksgiving. Using those 2 days for makeup days, to me, makes sense. Okay, as a profession. But the people who take their kids out of state, they're like, well, what happened? I can't plan my Thanksgiving week. You know, the parents and the grandparents and the travelers during that week see that asterisk and they're gonna say, well, we can't plan ahead because that is still out there. But we have to do that. It's not, and that was the thing that I don't think we communicated enough to the public. I mean, we share these calendars, we do all of that, but I think that parents and grandparents and everybody in the community need to understand, if we have a season like we had last year, we're gonna take your Thanksgiving, part of your Thanksgiving break. I think that should be part of the communication, because we got so much flack over taking Veterans Day last year. I know I did. Our kids were, I mean, I went to the schools, all of us, I think, went to the school to see what was going on Veterans Day. It was great what we did do. It was what we had to do in a short amount of time, because we wasn't sure what days we were going to make up. But I want to make sure that we communicate to families that there's a possibility the 23rd and the 24th of November, if we have a hurricane season like we did, those days may not be an option. They may be in-school days. So, but the other question was, January 18th, what is that day?
That is Martin Luther King Day.
I'm sorry? Is that MLK Day? Okay. Because we don't have, okay, I see it now. All right. The 7th. And then, of course, spring break is the 15th, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Okay. All right. But that, I think that, like Chair Cho said, I'm trying to find the difference between the two calendars, and that was the only date that I saw. And I would almost say, why are we doing the early release in October? Because if you look at the calendars, it's 2 Fridays in a row. Am I correct? If you look at September and October,
Yes.
Yes,
on version A, it's 2 Fridays in a row.
Yeah.
correct.
That's why I would say B is my better version.
And I skipped ahead to the slide that is kind of the calendar summary for B. This is kind of what all the dates for everything, and I put a star and bolded that early release day that says 10/16 there.
Right.
That's the change for calendar B, and that is moving that early release day on the 2nd to the 16th, so that it's not on consecutive Fridays, and it would break up those Friday releases some. And obviously the calendar committee had a conversation around that. The reason we can't do it on the 9th, because that was originally expressed as an idea, is because the week of the 5th through the 9th is the survey week for schools. And we want
Right.
to make sure we don't have any unusual days during survey week.
So why didn't we do the 23rd? That would be the 4th Friday, like Chair Choate was saying. If we're going to do a 4th Friday in September, do a 4th Friday in October.
I'm assuming it's
4th
because
Friday of February.
Wednesday is half day.
The Wednesday following was the half day as well,
Yeah.
as well as,
Right.
the teachers and some of the educators on the committee expressed that having those early release days close to when we do the parent-teacher nights is optimal for our teachers and what our teachers prefer. And so I think having those a little more tightly clustered was the preference of the educators on the committee.
Oh, because they actually do the meeting.
Yeah, they do the meetings right around the end of the first quarter.
Gotcha.
And then
Yeah.
they do the
Oh,
same in the
okay.
third quarter.
Gotcha. Charlie, do you have something? Or?
I do, real quick. I have no problems with the calendar at all. Calendar, like you said, we can only start on August 10th, and everything just fits into its place, and it kind of makes itself to some degree. But, you know, with little tweaks, and I'm glad the committee did discuss them. I think I probably say this every year we do the calendar, and it never goes anywhere, but I'll just try again with this board. But I would just ask that we remove any religious references to the calendar, from the calendar. It's not on the calendar itself, it's in the notes. Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Hanukkah, Good Friday, Passover. You know, we're a large, diverse institution, and to only include partially the holidays of two faiths, I don't, you know, it's just a consistency item, I guess, because, you know, we could have a person of another faith come in and, well, how come my holidays aren't here? Or the Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster might show up and want their, that's an actual church, by the way. They might show up and want their holidays labeled on the calendar. So it's been 10 years or so. It's never happened. If it doesn't happen this year, it's not a big deal, but I'll bring it up anyway. So, board members, I don't know how you feel.
So, Mr. Kennedy, you're talking about like the 4th through the 11th for Hanukkah?
Yeah, it's just down in the labels. Yeah, there's really, I mean, a person of faith, they're going to know those dates anyway. We don't need to, in my opinion, we don't need to put them on the school district's calendar.
I would agree with you. I mean, we don't even have Christmas on here, right? It
Correct.
just says holiday.
Good Friday is the only
Yeah, there is Good Friday.
Christian
yeah.
holiday labeled.
I would say, and again, you know, obviously, the calendar
Sure.
committee will do whatever, you know, the board directs. I think historically in school systems around the state, you know, those have been included in these types of documents, you know, not just for the community to be aware of, but also for our educators, because typically, you know, we want our parents and school administrators, our teachers and school administrators to be mindful of those observances, so that when students in their
Kids are
classes
out.
are observing them, they're not giving undue amounts of homework or scheduling large numbers of exams. And so I think traditionally some of the thought around including them has been around just the making our you know, academic apparatus aware of those occasions in our students' lives and our families' lives, so that they plan assignments and assessments accordingly.
Gotcha. Makes sense.
Actually, I was going to weigh in on that and say that that's what I always used it for, is so I could keep an eye on,
Right.
you know, I had a Muslim student and I needed to know what, you know, when she was going to be fasting and things like that, just because I could make sure that she wasn't, you know, unduly burdened with things as well.
Well, in fairness, should we put Ramadan on the calendar then? I mean, to that, I mean, my point, as long as we're consistent,
Yeah.
so we're,
I think we're
Fair
pretty
with all people.
consistent with the regular calendar. I mean, every calendar I ever buy, we're pretty consistent with what's on that regular calendar.
We'll take a look at that feedback.
Yeah.
We can continue to have
But
conversations.
that's the only difference in the two, right? A and B is that one day.
Correct. The difference between A and B is the one day. There was a significant amount of consensus on the calendar committee, which was lovely to experience.
And this will be posted on, like we did before, and there'll be a survey.
Correct. I just put it up on the
Oh, there you go.
presentation for you. So today is obviously our workshop presentation for you all and for our community to be made aware of these two drafts. Tomorrow, these drafts will be posted for 30 days on our website with a link for comments. We'll collect those comments over the course of the month, and then at the 5/20 board meeting, I'll bring the community feedback back to you, as well as a recommendation on an academic calendar for the 26-27 school year.
Okay.
All right.
Board members, one other important note that Mr. Jensen and I discussed, because there is so little difference between A and B, the which calendar do you prefer question right, becomes more nuanced because really the difference is which day. But there still will be a question about any other comments, so that if 100 people say, hey, school shouldn't start on the 10th, you should start on Tuesday, the 11th, then at least you'll have that feedback, and the calendar committee will as well. Or if there's something else that we missed that we should consider, then people have that opportunity to tell us that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you to the committee too.
Yep, thank you very much.
All right, next item. The information technology update, website and communication tools.
Put your name tag there. Who we are. All right. Board Chair Choate, school board members, superintendent, district leadership. Thank you for the opportunity today to provide a quick review over our new website transition and communication tools, and then obviously answer any questions that you might have. So we will go ahead and get started. My name is Scott Hansen, Chief Technology Officer, and with me today is,
Genesis Cipriano, Site Support and Training Manager.
and Ms. Genesis, she leads our web developers as well, and she's been our project manager through this process. So we'll go ahead and get started. So I wanted to provide you a timeline of the website over the years, so you have some, put some things in perspective. So going back to 2011, the district had a contract with Edline, which turned into Blackboard. And then moving forward later in 2012, the communication tool, there was a merger, and the school district contracted with Blackboard Connect. So that's the notification system that we've been using for a number of years. And then fast forwarding to May of 24, the last board approval was a 3-year contract that started July 1 of 2022, and that's coming to an end. And we talked about that last fall when we brought the Apogee recommendation to the board. Shortly after May of 22, in the fall of 2022, Blackboard was actually acquired by Finalsite. And then obviously in between 2011 and 22, there was multiple renewals. I didn't put all that in there, but just wanted to highlight some timelines for you. And then the board in September approved the Apogee recommendation by our web committee. And then in the first week of October, we started this transition process. So just to kind of give you an idea of the timeline there. So with that, Genesis is going to talk us through some improvements, and we're just kind of tag team this presentation and go through some highlights for you.
All right. Well, thank you. Go Live is scheduled for the first week of June, and some of the improvements to expect is the further expansion of Let's Talk across the website. Introduction of live feed is going to be for a quick and timely post. We'll be adding a smart search to the website, and we will also have a staging environment with approval queues. And we will also have the ability to sync calendars directly to the website. We've also done website design for this has been based on optimizing the user experience. So in addition to maintaining accessibility on the website, we will also be adding a custom search, and we will have the ability to maintain translation choices across the website. And there'll be optimization for mobile devices regardless of the device type that the end user is using. And we've also created an audience-based navigation with the well-received sticky menus, which you can now see on our current website under the Our Schools menu.
And yes.
Oh, if I may, real quick, I'm just curious if we know, I'm sure we can capture it right off the top of your head, maybe. How many people are accessing our website through their phone versus a laptop or tablet?
Sure,
device?
great question. We had a tool in previous years, and we still have the tool, that was really able to capture, up until last year, some dynamic types of versions, iOS, types of devices that were just coming to our website. In the fall, that tool went through some transition, and it's not as elaborate right now.
Okay,
for we
gotcha.
to get, but we do know from past years, the mobile experience, and that's what we really spend a lot of time on. Our two web developers, Suzanne Kelly Perez and Christopher Kreider, who are kind of the back end supporting this and making changes and working under the direction of Genesis. We really wanted to modify our page for the use of space, and you're going to see some significant changes in the user experience and less clicks on the mobile device, because we do know that the smartphone is the top choice that's going to our website each and every day, whether it's staff, whether it's students, community members, and we're really excited about, most of these companies that we have to choose from are really template driven, and the things that we really liked was the flexibility that the Apogee product provided our school district in the mobilization and creating really centric type websites and dynamic sites where we could really utilize that space and increase that user experience. So I think you're going to be very pleased, and it's dynamic. So what you see that first week of June, and as we get our hands on the website 100%, it's turned over to us from Apogee, it's going to dynamically change and continue to see improvements as we go through that process into the start of the school year. A great question.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that's just what I always run into. Like, if I'm on my phone, like, I know exactly how to get to this if I'm on my laptop.
Right.
But it's different when I get on my phone.
And
so
and that's
a nice
the
feature.
big, that was a really a huge emphasis that our team put on making this transition. So you're going to see a much improved experience on that mobile device, very similar. And a lot of that has to do with how we have things on the website itself, right? And the placement. And we've really been working with all our departments, having good discussions with our committees, representing with schools and principals, and dynamically coming to the conclusion of what you're going to see as we go live in June.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Great question.
Do we have data on, like, for instance, I'm on the old, or not the old,
Current.
the current one. Like the ribbons over the top, academic dashboard, calendar, careers, curriculum. I don't know if you call them ribbons or not, whatever. Do we have data that says, like, that's these are the number one searched things that families are going for? That's why they're up there.
Yeah, so we refer to them as heat maps,
Okay.
and we certainly, even when we did a few years ago, I think, Mr. Kennedy, you were on the board when we did a major revision of when we had the current product that we have today, prior to being acquired by Final Site, we used those heat maps, and we're able to go back to departments and go back to the district leadership team and look at those metrics to say, this is an area that's just not being clicked on. And then so we consolidated that. So we did the very same thing this time around, but the big improvement from a navigational is that use of space and getting rid of some of that unusable space on the website to create a cleaner user experience on the website. But yeah, great question. But we are absolutely looking at that, where individuals are clicking, and then when we get into the customized search is an area where we're really excited about, that you're going to see a dynamic change come. First week of June can't come soon enough. So we'll talk about that here momentarily. Actually, we're on the yeah, so customized search. So before Genesis touches and gives you some examples here, one of the things that we recognized about our current website, and you've probably experienced this, I know the superintendent has mentioned it as well. The search is not very dynamic. You go out and you type something in our search, and you get hit with a lot of results, right? Google.
Way too much
And
stuff.
we really spent a lot of time on what we could do within the new product. And what we really found initially was the Apogee product by default was still going to put us in the same situation. So we really started researching what other school districts and universities were doing, and we found a tool that a district to the south of us, near us, was already using, And we really had some conversations, and we've implemented that into the Apogee product, just like some existing Florida districts have done. So if you go out and between now and June, go out and do a search experience on our current website, and then as we make that transition in June, you're going to be very pleased at what you see moving forward. And that's that additional tool that we've added to this that I think is going to create a really positive search. And Genesis is going to touch on some of those enhancements that you'll see.
Yeah, and some of those enhancements are like the pre-search suggestions. So when you go to the search, it'll already be kind of populated once you click it with some of the popular search terms. Can already be up there and ready to go. It also has the ability to show the end user their recent searches. So if they're always going to the website to search just a few items, it'll already be there under their recent searches, or it could be. Search results can also be ranked to help bring in the best results to the top. So instead of getting all of that, that search result could be up at the top there. And also through analyzing common misspellings in search, searches that are going on, we can go ahead and make some auto corrections in the back end so that even if, it's misspelled on the search, it could bring up something that would be a little bit more to what they were actually searching for there.
Especially with our school names, because some of our school names are long, and sometimes you include the first name or the last name, and so we're going to be able to dynamically do some things there to help provide some positive results of what that end user is searching for to get them to the specific information faster.
Chair Chuck.
Yeah.
When you said you're going to be able to link calendars in, can you expand on that for me? Like, I mean, we just talked calendars for the school year, but like each individual school's calendar might have this sport but not that sport.
Sure,
And this
we
is-
actually have a slide on that.
Okay, good.
And if,
All right.
yeah, if we want to wait, and we can answer
We'll
it now,
wait.
or we can.
I'll wait.
Yes, we actually
Yeah.
we do have a
Because
slide
that's
on
been
that.
the biggest thing for me is trying to pull this calendar,
Sure.
that SAC calendar, this athletic calendar, this tennis calendar, all of those things without
Yes.
going through Ms. Cox. Hey, can you find me this calendar? I can't find this calendar for
We
me.
will cover it here in just a few
Good
slides.
deal. Thank you.
Absolutely. Okay.
All right. So Let's Talk has successfully been rolled out to enrollment management, ESC department, superintendent's area, and the transportation department. And with that, it's a great time to continue expanding that integration with our go live in the beginning of June. So we'll be able to expand Let's Talk across the departments that are on the website now, and contact information will be able to be updated via a single location. And in addition to that, there are custom forms and workflows that can be done that will also help to expedite and track submissions, which would ultimately help with better customer service. And this right here is just an example of, since Let's Talk has rolled out at the beginning of this school year, that we've received 15,683 total dialogues. Like, this is a snapshot of that here, and we expect, of course, for that number to continue as more departments come on to Let's Talk.
Come on. Yeah.
Can I ask a question there real quick?
Yeah.
So, I don't know much about Let's Talk other than it's a kind of an interface with the community, apparently, right? So how does, so I guess an example would be the best way to do it. I have a student, Mr. Richard Tatum writes, I have a concern. I've been trying to contact a high school about my child's schedule. I'm not getting any response. Is that the type of thing that comes into this system?
It could be.
It could be, and then, so what's the process for that to get tracked and resolved and get feedback to the parent at that point?
Sure. So it would depend on that form that was entered. So like, there are the custom workflows that it would route,
Okay.
and it can be routed as well. So it would go into a queue basically for somebody to address.
Okay. So then how does it get it, how do we get the feedback to the parent so it just doesn't go into the
Oh, it depends
electronic
on
oblivion?
Want me
Go ahead,
Yeah,
whoever
go
wants to say it.
It just depends on how it's submitted. So they have a ability to put in there how they want to be contacted. So that feedback could be
Call, email back.
through the email. It goes back and forth within the platform, so it's all in one location.
And there's some oversight there based on the workflows and working with the departments and the leadership team. Based on those workflows, once that request comes in, there's some additional eyes on it to make sure that we're responding to it. So previously, if you go back to prior to Let's Talk, it was probably just a link to an email address, and then maybe somebody's out for 3 or 4 days. It's just sitting in an inbox waiting to go unanswered if that parent or community member hasn't already progressed to call the district office or the school. So that workflow is there, and then based on some menus and drop downs, some predefined options they have to select, that tracking mechanism in there, and then the response based on how that community member wants to be contacted, that response is there, so we have a record of how it was responded to. So again, if we have to engage other department members or leadership members, there's a record there of what was communicated, what was the time frame that we communicated back to the member.
So in my example that I gave, let's say I'd like to be contacted by email about my concern about my child's schedule, like what's the process? So it gets routed to the school?
It's routed, yeah, so it may go based on the department or how we're going to devise the workflow for a school. It's going to go into the applicable leadership team or executive director or an assistant or a school assistant. They're going to flag it. We're going to train them on how to monitor when it comes in, and then they're going to divvy that up to the appropriate area, whether it's a department leadership member or a school, even a school principal.
So I guess what I'm trying to really dig down into is like after 5 days, how do we monitor it to make sure that it's actively being pursued, that it just doesn't sit there for, is your staff doing it? Is there someone?
We are
at
not,
school
no,
that's
the
doing it?
departments, and the departments where we set the workflow up. And again, we have some other leadership members that are taking a look at this throughout the course of, in each department. So whether it's ESE or it's transportation, they have workflows set up and they have their individual department process to make sure that it's being responded to in a timely manner.
So I actually have a question for you, Dr. Weiss. We get a lot of these emails about, whatever. That's fine. I'm not complaining about that. That's our job, and especially as an elected official. But I'm just wondering, because what I typically do is I say, "Dear Mrs. Smith, thank you for your correspondence." I courtesy copy you or and Laura, and then you respond, and that's just a whole big email trail. Would it be more efficient? Might they get a quicker answer if I said, "Hey, there's this Let's Talk thing. How about you go over there and fill out this form?" And you might get a quicker response. What are your thoughts on that? Would that be?
Well, I can speak to the implementation in my office, and really, Ms. Donna McCollum manages that process, so I don't want to put you on the spot, but feel free to jump in. I think what we find is that response times are much faster, right? Because if someone emails me, the question is, how long is it until I see it? Because I'm sitting in meetings all day, or, oh, well, we'll get to that tonight, but I'm at a community event with some of you or whatever. Whereas, as it's coming in, Ms. Damakala is managing in real time. And sometimes the question is very simple, right? Sometimes it's, I'm a vendor and I sell products related to students with disabilities. Who is your ESE director? She can respond to that and close that ticket in less than 60 seconds. The question is, when am I going to get to it based on time to process email? So I think we're finding that our turnaround time is much quicker. Similarly, if a parent writes to me about a transportation complaint, ultimately it's going to go to Mr. Warrington as Director of Transportation. But if it's going in through Let's Talk, Ms. Damakalo is seeing it and routing it immediately, again, versus how long is it going to be until I triage my email, right? And again, maybe it's quick or maybe it's not, just depending on what's happening. The system does track the amount of time that it takes to respond. And so in a full implementation, meaning all departments, all schools, everyone's on this system, ultimately we can track what's been assigned to somebody and hasn't been answered. How long is it taking to respond? There's also a customer feedback rating at the end, right? So the ticket closes out, and then the person who wrote in gets a, how happy are you with, whatever. And again, sometimes people don't like the answer they get, and so they rate 1, and that's okay. But sometimes they don't like the answer, but they appreciate that they got a really quick reply, right? And so we're getting that feedback as well.
I guess what I'm asking you is, when I get certain emails that seem like it would be more appropriate, should I politely, suggest, and they can still write us if they want, but suggest that, hey, there's this great talk function, and because here's what's going to happen, ma'am. I'm going to send it to the superintendent, and he's going to send it to Mr. Rinaldi in transportation, and Mr. Rinaldi's going to send it to Mr. Warrington, and then it's going to get back to you. But if you just put it through this system, you might get a quicker response. I mean, should we be doing that, or was that helpful? Or
I
not?
think, again, once we go to the new website in June, and
Right.
all departments are using this, yes, I think we want to encourage everybody to use this system instead of the traditional email, because everything is more trackable.
Right.
And so board members, part of this, and we can have, these conversations as part of your one-on-one briefing, is do each of you want to move to that system? Now, some people already have your email address and they can still write to you an email, right? But if you move to this system, you would be getting all of this, but you would be able to assign in the system, who you think, needs to answer that. And then we can be tracking all of that. So, it is an option. And again, depending on, what the board's level of comfort is, we can try out different processes. So for example, if we wanted to have a single Let's Talk for all board members, so that right now, if somebody wants to write to the board, right, they click on the link, they get all your email addresses. I think Ms. Cox and I are copied, right? Then we all get a copy of that. We could duplicate that in Let's Talk, and then we could be triaging that and then providing you with a weekly summary of here's everything that came in case you want to follow up individually with somebody, and here's the triage that we took. So I think the new website with the expansion of this tool gives us a lot more options.
So but some offices are using Let's Talk at this point, right?
Yes, so we started again with the highest volume parent touch departments.
Right.
So transportation, ESE, superintendent's office.
Right.
The intention is to deploy, because it's worked well, to deploy district-wide. That will even make it more efficient, because everything will run through the system, and we'll have to get everybody trained, but we really shouldn't have email trading going on anymore between departments when we're triaging a specific issue. It should all run through the system. And then it would just be a matter of whether the board feels comfortable going on the system, or whether you still want your individual email address on the website. And again, what may be more helpful is we're currently scheduling some time for each of you to get a demo of the rezone software. We could certainly add a demo of this on so that you can see with it, interact with it a little bit, so that you can tell us how comfortable you feel with it.
Yeah.
Again, so far it's worked rather well. And again, we procured this process based on feedback I got from other superintendents who said this really streamlined communication with families in the district. So again, it was a very limited rollout. We feel confident we're ready to expand forward.
I'd have to look at it to see whether I'd want to do what you talked about for all of us. But what I do know is that, like when we have evening board meetings, and sometimes I'll just sit here and do my email till whatever time, and I walk out the door, and your car's still sitting in the parking lot, and you're still answering emails. And we have 42,000 students in this district. And I admire your work ethic, and you're working hard, but if we could relieve that burden off of you and some of the staff and just have it get to the right place without you having to sit there at 9:42 in the evening, writing Mrs. Jones about the bus problem she's having. Not that it's not important, but you can't solve it. Mr. Warrington can solve it. And if it went right to him and it bypassed you, then that would just make everything more efficient, and your parents or your son and your wife might get to see you a little bit more, and you'll be healthier. The world will be a better place.
Are
Our
you
school
saying
system will
he's
be better.
unhealthy? I just
I'm
wanna.
just saying, it's
can I-
all better all around. Angels will fly down and flowers will bloom, and once this system gets in place, the sun will, no hurricanes will hit.
Yeah.
It's gonna solve all of our
Second that
problems.
motion.
Well, the
I'm going to
other,
vote. I'm seconding that.
Yeah.
So,
all of those good outcomes, Mr. Tatum, but then the other bonus is when everyone is on the system, we can run better analytics, right?
Yeah.
So if you want to know, how many different parents had a transportation routing concern, right? If we have all those in one system,
yep,
we have really clear information as opposed to me saying to you, okay, let me call Mr. Warrington, and then I got to call Miss Johnson, and I got to check in with Mr. Clerk and Mr. Rinaldi to see how many parents, and then we'll do the math and then get back to you. Right now, we're queuing one system.
Right.
And in addition to that, we can also tell you how long did it take us to answer the question and what was our satisfaction rating.
Yeah.
Right? So there's a lot more analytics when we all go in together on this system.
'Cause obviously, as we get bigger with 5 new schools, it's just a couple thousand more students emailing all of us, emailing you, and it's, again, I don't want to give the impression that it's not important, but we just need to make this more efficient. We'll get back to you, we'll handle your concerns, but it has to be more efficient as the bureaucracy gets bigger based on our increasing student load, stuff like that. So that's all I had. Thank you.
I just want to, if I can, are you done? Did you have your hand up?
Oh, no, I'm
Oh,
good.
okay.
Thank you.
To me, this is going to be epic, in my opinion, because email all your board members. We all get the same emails, and I'm guessing this list talk is kind of like a chat, but not really a chat.
Not necessarily a chat.
Right, but
just
it's still
categorizing maybe the potential challenge or
Right.
issue or concern from the person and dynamically through what their issue by making a few selections.
right,
It's
right.
going to dynamically to
Right, it's a
Pam's
FAQ,
point, get
you
it
know,
to
kind of thing.
that department head,
Right.
leadership team member or staff member, subject matter expert to resolve and respond
Right.
very efficiently to the superintendent's point.
Because based on slide, well, the one with the total dialogues, 15,000.
Yeah.
Based
That
on
one's there.
that, when you started this in August to where we are in March, you're telling me that from August, you had that many?
Well, that's where we
Where-
ramp up. When we look at, the month of August is
Start
a
of
ramp
school
up
year.
month.
That
Start
was
of
the
school
first,
year.
right.
And again, we also remember, we brought this on, we added departments, September, October, November, we added those other departments. We didn't launch everybody in the month of August. Transportation
Right.
was a focus point from the superintendent, as he mentioned earlier, to get that. So we expect to see a higher, just like we receive more phone calls in August than we do any month of the school year. We average 30,000 plus phone calls every month. We approach 50,000 sometimes in the month of August. So August is a ramp-up month, and we expect that. But dynamically, as we add more departments into our schools and add the schools into this, we're going to see those metrics across the board. But I also think that sometimes it's not necessarily a bad thing by not having a lot. That means we're also doing a good job. So if we're answering questions, so I don't necessarily, I don't know that you want to see 20, 30,000 dialogues every month. I
No.
think that there's some value in seeing, maybe a reduction in dialogues.
Because because I can see a lot of rezone questions coming
Sure.
pretty fast here over the summer. So I'm guessing,
And that's where you're going to see the presence of the Let's Talk across the dynamic
Right.
website and creating opportunities for them to dialogue and having those options to choose from and then routing that to the applicable department.
Right.
So we can get a quality response in an efficient time manner. And then we have a nice record of that instead of searching for somebody's email or finding who responded to this person. They were out of the office for 2 days, those types of things. So I think, moving forward, this has proven to be an effective tool. And as the superintendent mentioned, we're kind of ready to expand and move forward across other departments.
okay, because that to me is like, email all the board members. Okay, am I gonna respond to an issue that's going on at Parish Community where I think Ms. Felton should respond to that, or to Manatee High, where I think Chair Choate should respond if it's school-specific.
Right.
But the whole thing on rezoning, that's gonna be, it will be eventually school-specific, but it's gonna be email all the board members and get them to do this and get them to do that kind of thing. But I like it that this can, and I know we've already been using it, but this is gonna be more robust, it sounds like. That we did a trial thing, now we're gonna go, we've got what? Training topic, enrollment, ESC, superintendent, transportation. Is there gonna be like maintenance or grounds or anything like that related type thing, Mr. Rinaldi, I'm looking at you? If there's an issue on, right, if there's an issue at a site that, hey, I just drove by and there's a problem here, and somebody needs to look at that before a student or an individual gets hurt, that they could communicate that through here. They would go to whoever, and I'm guessing, Todd, is it Todd Hanson?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it would go to maintenance.
Right.
If it came in that format, but specifically when it becomes life safety and all that, typically it's done through our work order system.
Right,
And
I get that.
school-based individual.
But
is-
there may be an
yeah.
issue that
Yeah, if
someone
someone
has not brought
observes
to
on a
the principal
Sunday.
or a work order system, you know, so, okay. I think this is gonna be a good thing. I'd like to do the demo. I think that's a great idea, to see that. I wish we'd already seen it, to be honest with you, but we're all busy, so I get it. Okay, that's all, thanks.
I was just thinking to Ms. Spray's point, and like she, if it's something that's, you know, one of my district schools, I try to respond to that and try not to respond to ones from other schools. If there's a possibility of a way of, you know, this issue is taking place at Parish Community High School. Oh, well, then we'll send that to Mrs. Felton because she's the board member there. And I think that would, you know, decrease every board member gets a email for something that they themselves wouldn't respond to because it's not their district. You know, obviously, when it comes down to the funding, for example, that we were talking about in the previous meeting about legislative, that's everybody. We all care about that, and we can all respond to that in our own ways. But you know, so if there's a way to incorporate that.
Sure, I think what we can do is certainly, to the superintendent's point earlier, we can certainly take that feedback, and then as we prepare for the training, we can provide some possible workflows, and then you can look at those workflows, and we can take next steps based on your feedback.
For that, yeah, thank you.
Perfect.
All right. So we just have a couple more slides. One of the requests that we received from our schools and our web editors and our school administrators in the past was the ability to potentially approve some of the staging of the content. So you have a number of web editors at any potential school, but you know, based on school administrator delegating that authority to different people, whether it's athletics, clubs, academics. But there are times when the school administrator would like to see that content before it goes onto the website. And we haven't had that approval queue. And we now have a staging environment and an approval queue. So this is kind of showcasing you an example here where something is sitting in the staging queue. The administrator can then, if needed, they can approve it, and then it will post automatically. Or if they need to make a minor change, they'll be able to do that. And certainly in some cases, we're obviously pushing this because we think it's a great feature, but there's going to be times when an approval is not going to be needed, and the school administrator can certainly, or department head can make that call. But we're excited about having this flexibility in the product that we haven't had in previous products. Jen, you want to add anything to that, or no, we're good? Yeah. So moving on, Jen.
All right. Live feed is also going to be new. It's something that is can be used for getting information out quickly. So, for example, you know, some use it. There's an app for live feed, and so somebody can actually be at an event using the app, take a picture, put up a couple sentences, and send it out. So it would be a quick and timely update. So I think a lot of our people will be kind of excited to be able to use that and be able to add some value there to the website as well.
On with that, so like staff can say, "Hey, I'm at the STEM fair, and this is what's going on, and come check us out," and pop that up there. Or, yeah.
Yes, based on who has access, given the department, but if we obviously are across the district in various departments or schools, those administrators, department leaders are going to provide certain individuals. It's one of the things that we've lacked in our current environment is that quick, timely, efficient, good news or great news story, posting it out there. So this will give that functionality to any number of people in the district that have that ability to do that.
Very cool.
So that will show up in that live feed. So we're pretty excited. We think that's a feature that the schools are really going to enjoy using.
Neat, thank you.
And right now, sometimes that feedback is a day or two late getting out there because the system just doesn't support that efficient, timely transfer of that information. So,
Any chance we'll have access to that?
I'm sorry?
Any chance board members will have access to that? Because there
The
are
live
times.
feed?
Yeah, because like at the
I work
Shrek
for
event the other night, it would have been nice.
Pleasure the superintendent, so I'm going to defer to him. So I'm,
So we're asking you, superintendent, too.
Well, I was at Shrek the other night. It would have, I don't know. There are times when I've been at events and I say it, and I take a picture and I say, I should post this on Facebook because it's really cool. And then my day gets going. And then, like you said, 36 hours later, I go, I meant to post that. And it's kind of old and it's old news. But if I could have done it right then, it would have been cool. So, yeah, as long as you don't think we'll screw it up.
We will.
We will. Appreciate access to it.
Well, and that's, and we will have to work through the processes on who can post and what that approval process looks like, just so we don't have any, issues.
Right.
Part of, some of this too is enhancing our cyber profile, which we can certainly talk about in the shade. But,
okay. So, getting back to the earlier, Ms. Spray, your comment concerning calendar, Jen's going to walk us through what we were kind of calling the event consolidation. So, Jen?
There you go. Yes, so with the syncing of calendars, here, the events consolidation is, you can click, see all events, and there's like an example here to kind of show that the calendars that are already in there. And then you could select what calendars you want to view. And then those that have items are going to show up there on the right there under the events.
And I see, like, district athletics, so that's going to be a click option.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yep, so
Cool.
so it'll be a district athletics calendar. So when things are put on there and you go and you choose it, then you'll be able to see those events.
Okay, and in an event that an event had been canceled, how up to date can that be done?
That's always going to depend on the person providing the update.
Right, because I went to a match,
Sure.
and there was no one there but the trainer that didn't even know the match had already taken place, so.
Well, and I
That was
think,
a
and I
little
think
disappointing.
when we get to your point, one of the last slides, when we talk about some additional communication tools that,
Okay.
that we're currently piloting, I think to your point, in combination with the event consolidation, some of the flexibility that we have, I think we might be able to, that might be the mechanism that, to potentially get, having a standard communication app
Yeah.
might address that concern.
Good, good.
so Vice Chair, just a little more info. The ultimate goal, once we're fully operationalized, is that every public athletic, arts, STEM event at any school or district facility ends up on this calendar so that any member of the community can go
SAC meeting?
and enjoy what we're trying to do.
Right.
The key is going to be making this part of the culture so that when changes happen, somebody goes, oh, yep, I've got to go update the calendar, right? Because that's not
Right.
part of the culture right now. So it will take time to get to that point.
Of course.
But that is ultimately the goal, and also so that it's very easy to promote, right? So I want to make it really easy for the communications department to go, hey, we're going to run a social media post on all the home games on this Friday night in all sports. So they will be able to go to the calendar, pull that information over, and put it into Facebook and Instagram
Push it
and
out.
whatever, so that
Right.
we're really providing the community with all those opportunities to go and see the great stuff our kids are doing. It's just going to be a matter of building that internal staff culture of
Right.
creating and maintaining these calendars, so that it's really easy and accurate for people to see. So that'll be the part that takes time.
Right, yeah, there's gonna be a learning curve.
Scott, I actually, my apologies to everybody, I have to leave a little bit early today, but because I have to go, I just want to jump ahead to your last slide. if I
Yes.
could. 'Cause
Absolutely.
I have a question there. The pilot program for the, I didn't even realize that Focus had this tool embedded inside of it. It's always been there, we just haven't.
It hasn't. It's new in the last few years. It's really evolved. We have the free portion of the tool. So we have the app today, and our teachers, as you know, the teachers use the free portion communicating within the parent portal. Because of the contract ending and some of the things that we just discussed back in the fall, and in alignment with the strategic plan and the technology plan that was board approved, we really wanted to look at a comprehensive tool. And this tool has really come a long way to the point where we piloted it at 4 schools. We just recently added transportation. So that during the school year, we've received really positive feedback and some feedbacks and changes that our schools wanted to use. So the plan here, as well as reunification, if you think about the reunification process, having an all-inclusive communication app across the board, where all of our content doesn't have to be sent to another provider for contact information and making those communication calls. I think our staff, led by Miss Darlene, and Miss Marissa is our subject matter expert and has been leading the trainings and the rollout of the pilot. We've received lots of good feedback and some changes. We've made a number of changes and requests to focus. There's some much larger districts in the state of Florida using this tool as well. But ultimately, at the end of the day, our schools are the ones that use this tool every single day, our transportation department. So the plan is later this month at the P12 meeting, we're going to ask our principals and their contacts that have been using the system to potentially give some feedback to all the principals and provide that, because we think that's critically important because they're the ones using this day in and day out. Transportation is currently testing it at the 4 school sites. They're already using it. We want to make sure that each of the scenarios that transportation uses, whether it's a late bus or a change, we want to make sure that each of those scenarios we're able to roll out across the district. So we're doing that, but very, very positive so far. And the desire is get that feedback, recommendation to the superintendent, and then potentially bring it to the board in May, certainly by the first board meeting in June, but May would make me feel a little bit more comfortable with rollout for the start of July, because the current contract ends at the end of June. But again, really want to make sure that we address the concerns of the pilot schools. They've been great having to navigate and learn a new system, but they've been using it, providing lots of feedback. We've been having lots of meetings throughout the course of the fall, winter, and spring. And I think we've addressed just about every scenario that we can think of. We've had discussions with multiple school districts that have been using it throughout the course of the last 2 years and garnered lots of good feedback from them as well, and lessons learned.
Okay. Yeah, so because I know that many of the elementary schools are using Class Dojo. So
Correct.
so this could kind of replace Class Dojo, so that admins, teachers don't have to be posting in 2 different places. This would just wipe out the need for Class Dojo, basically.
Correct. Well, yeah, I mean, I don't want to sit here and,
Yeah, I don't want to
but it
commit
would
you
be
to that.
it would certainly be a centralized an app that could be utilized across the board for teachers, staff. And our teachers are familiar with it because they use it in communication with the parent portal today via email. But again, I go back to even the reunification, which I think is critical. We now have an app that, if needed, we can provide, or to your point earlier about an event, an athletic event can be sent out very quickly by the athletic director or coach that an event has been canceled to the corresponding groups that have been created. So again, that all-inclusive app, I think, is is critically important. It's been a goal of the district from even prior to my arrival to have a centralized app communication across all schools. And I know one of our principals even stated, having children at multiple schools, stated that, the importance of being able to potentially have one all-inclusive app. So, but again, we want our schools, because they're the ones using it, we need their feedback and make sure they're comfortable with leveraging it. So ultimately, we're gonna rely on them making that recommendation.
Cool. Thank you. Appreciate it.
So going back, I think we just had one slide.
Yeah.
Yep, just one slide left. So Jen, you want to just cover the
Sure.
ongoing training?
So training has already begun, and we will continue to offer training and support throughout the implementation process and, of course, post-go live. And we just highlighted some of the training that's specific to the website, which would be the accessibility and document management course. We'll have a calendars course, social media integration, and our website editor course.
Okay. So is this replacing, what is this replacing? Anything that we're gonna cut costs on?
As far as, so when you say app, the website or the communication tool?
Either one.
Or both, either one. Yeah, so two things. I'll answer that two different ways. So currently today, if we were to, we've already made the transition to Apogee from Blackboard. And with the communication tool, if we move forward with the recommendation, and that's what our principals recommend from the pilot schools, and the superintendent supports that recommendation based on that feedback. And again, that's happening in a few weeks, so this just happened to fall before that meeting. There's going to be a savings of about $20,000 on what we're currently paying today for our website and communication tool today.
Okay.
So there is about a $20,000 savings. If we decide to keep the current tool that we're currently using, it's going through a transition because, again, I mentioned back a few years ago that product merged and was acquired. So we're on the old platform. So if we were to stay on the current system that we're using, which is referred to as Blackboard Mass Notifications or Final Site, it's going through a change as well. It looks to be about an $8,000 increase in total cost. So, but again, it'll be a different application, even what we're using today. There's going to be a change irregardless. And as one of the strategic planning initiatives was to try to get to an all-inclusive centralized communication app. But to that point, there could be a savings of around $20,000 if we move forward with the current pilot application. But I don't want to get too far ahead because, again, the feedback from our principals is critical because they're the ones using this on a daily basis to communicate to their school communities.
Right.
So with that, I think that wraps up. Any other questions about the communication module or any final questions?
No? It's
Right.
great. Good stuff.
And again, I can't thank the board enough and superintendent for that early fall approval. Some districts try to do this in 3 months. Allowing our team that October timeframe and to be able to transition really took a lot of pressure off, and we were able to take a lot of pressure off the schools and do a lot of this work to make this a fairly easy transition. It's been a lot of work, but we certainly appreciate that timing in October and allowing us to work up to this point to go live. So we'll be ready. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
All right, and last item.
Oh, evaluation time. Oh, my.
Evaluation process, timeline, superintendent and board attorney. Dr. Watson, did you have anything you want to discuss this first?
Yes, and thank you, Chairman. I added this item just so that we could primarily review the timeline associated with my contract to make sure the board's comfortable. I know Mr. Kennedy's departed, so we'll have to follow up with him. But just as a reminder, my employment contract indicates that I'm evaluated annually during the month of June. That prior to that evaluation, I complete a self-appraisal and that the board selects the evaluation instrument. Last year, board members, you looked at several instruments from other districts, selected one that was used in Pinellas County for Dr. Mike Grego's evaluations with his board. And of course, Chair, Vice Chair, and Mr. Tatum, you used that form a year ago. And so I think the question at this point is, does the board want to use the same instrument, or do you want to make any changes to it? And then based on that, we would figure out the timeline.
Yeah, I liked how it went with the last one.
I'm good with the last one. It's very simple. You can add or do whatever you want in the comment sections. This will be your first time going at it, but
Yeah, I'm going to defer to the rest of the board on this
it's,
one.
It's very simple. And like superintendent says, he gives us a self-evaluation.
Mhm.
And then you just kind of, I kind of compared what, we just kind of put your heads together and
Yep.
do what you think. But
Well-
I'm good with keeping the same format. Simple.
Mhm.
It's so simple.
I thought it worked well last time, so as the saying goes, if it ain't broke, don't fix it,
Yeah.
right? So,
Right,
there, that's my
Yeah,
opinion
that was
on it.
good.
right.
Great. So then, board members, I also gave you a draft evaluation timeline that's very similar to the one we used last year and that I believe is compliant with the contract. So we're having the workshop today to look at the timeline. My self-evaluation would be handed to you on Friday, May 23rd. We have a workshop that day. And so I would just provide each of you with a copy that day. Then
Perfect.
your completed form would be due back Tuesday, June 10th. That is a school board meeting day. So that if you had questions or whatever, you could work with Ms. Cox on that. Then the results would be tabulated, turned around back to you by the end of that week. I think we'll all be at FSBA together at that point.
Yeah.
And then the evaluation would go to the board for your approval on the Tuesday, June 24th board meeting. And I would see each of you one-on-one on either June 16th or 17th, so that if there was any individual conversation, we could do that at that time. But again, that's pretty much the timeline we used last year.
Yeah, it looked very familiar. I mean, the way you did it.
Right.
Yeah,
If it ain't broke,
I'm fine with that.
I'm good.
Great. And then the last question from a process perspective, and we dealt with this as well last year, but I just want to check in with you. Last year on the self-appraisal, I used the form, right, and put in some comments, and then I provided maybe some internal artifacts that you hadn't seen before. What I did not do was build multiple binders full of evidence and data. If you would like me to do that, I certainly can.
I don't need it.
Last year, we talked about it, in the direction from the board was, please don't provide multiple binders.
No, I think what you did last year was fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm okay with no binder.
All right, that's wonderful, and I thank you for that, and so does my team and Danielle and Laura. We all appreciate you for that. So I'll follow basically the same format that I did last year, and then if you have questions or need other information, you can let me know. Okay, so that was all I had on that process. I just wanted to be sure we were in agreement on dates. I don't know if anybody else has
No,
anything.
we have board attorney evaluation form on there.
Yeah, so, and I just added that because last year, having not been through that process administratively, it slipped away a little bit and we got it done right before the board turnover, so it was like an October, November timeline.
Is it
You all want
supposed
to
be
use?
June?
I'm not sure.
I thought it was always supposed to be around November.
I thought it was too, but
I don't know. I have to look at the policy. I mean,
can you pull your contract up and
I have to
see?
look at policy.
Mr. Dye?
I don't recall there, I just was
I didn't think
checking
there
to
was-
see if that timeline worked, if you
I
wanted us
thought
to
that's
do
why
that
Ms.
same
Foreman
thing.
brought it to do it, is because of that. But yeah, I mean, I don't particularly care what time.
In my email, it shows that I turned it in like in November or something.
Yeah,
I think.
Right.
yeah.
when I did it.
It's more like a January to December type deal.
But since we have it up, can we talk about it?
Yeah, yeah. The actual form itself?
Yeah, the actual form itself.
Yeah.
So, on page 3 of 3, under goal communication skills, one of the things that, when I did the evaluation last year, there's some things on here that I don't think Mr. Dye, I guess the question is, do we want him to do them? Because if they're on here and then he doesn't do them, then you're like, well, not doing them. But then the question is
Yeah.
it really part of the job that we want him to do? And, you know, and so the one I keep looking at is on page 3 of 3, goal number 3, or where it says goal 3 communication skills, the first item under there: informs the board of pertinent changes in state and federal law, advises boards on impact of pending legislation. I mean, is that, you know, we get that from sometimes Mr. Chapman, and we get that from our consultants. Is that really something that we want him to be doing? Because I don't know how you feel about it, Mr. Dye, but I don't know that you do that, but then I don't know that that's part of what we want you to be doing. And if that is what we want you to be doing, then maybe we should give you some thoughts or guidance on how to do that. But do you feel like that's part of your role, or that you're doing it and I'm missing it? I'm trying to talk around it, but
No, that's
go ahead.
Yeah. I think you're making a good point. I think that goes back to the good old days when, not me, but when the council for the school board probably was one of the only sources for that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's now become such an enormous job that you get it from a number of sources.
Yeah.
So it's probably not a
Applicable.
primary role of your board attorney any longer. Now, your board attorney will bring up certain targeted changes
Right.
that you're dealing with in some factual setting,
Yeah.
but it's probably not a primary job skill because of the scope of how many sources the board gets that from these days.
Well, and to do that effectively, that would take you a lot of
Right.
significant amount of time. I mean, of all the legislation because when I read that, I would expect you to be, I don't know, on a biweekly basis, especially during, during the session, to be giving us an update
Yeah.
on all these things. And so I guess maybe either we want to strike that, or
Sure.
just.
I'm fine striking it.
Strike it.
I agree.
I actually get that information from other lawyers that,
Oh,
that focus on,
Yeah.
Right.
the
It-
changes that
yeah.
are going on every year with the
Okay,
laws. So that's probably a good idea.
so just strike it then. Yeah, and that way I don't have to mark you down on it. Because I'm like, well, it says it. I'd just rather,
Yeah.
just strike it. If that's, if the other people.
Yeah,
board
yeah,
members
we-
concur with
That-
that.
I'm good with it.
Yeah.
Great. Maybe
Is there anything else?
I had one other thing.
Yeah.
It just came to my mind when I was reading this. Not communication skills, but what I've tried to do with this form over the last couple of years is just make it accurate, because it really wasn't. It was just a form that was used probably generically. Under professional services, it really comes from what's happened in the last few years as the board went through selecting a new general counsel, which has happened twice in the last 3 years or whatever it is. So I'm sort of also looking at this as a job description. If the board goes to, in the future, to pick a new board attorney, this would be kind of helpful in figuring out, job description. Probably under professional services, one role that the board attorney, that you probably want them to have some skills in, is also being able to render services to the staff when needed.
Okay.
That's really not on this at all. And, your perfect candidate is also going to be able to have a background in school law enough that when from time to time they may need to assist with that aspect of the job, you know, not on a regular basis, but as needed, so that you've got some, you know, someone on the bench that can
Right.
also help if you're selecting a new general counsel, which is what, you know, has actually happened. And when stuff like that happens, you go like, well, that probably should be
Right.
part of the job, right?
Right.
So that might be something. The only thing is when I do that, or when someone in our office does that, the person analyzing if we were helpful is the staff more than the board.
Sure.
But I guess you would maybe hear if something wasn't working out or whatever. But that could be something that goes under professional services, the ability to assist general counsel and staff on legal matters when needed,
Okay.
rather than just being the board's counsel.
Yeah.
Because technically that's what I am, is the board's counsel. But it's good to also be able to handle, you know, a subpoena or something that comes in from time to time.
And we collaborate quite a lot between my office and Mr. Dye's offices, especially when it comes to things like property easements,
Yeah.
the land use issues that Mr. Dye has expertise in. Those do, the houses cross paths there.
Yeah.
So maybe something along the lines of
I'm writing it
coordinates or
now.
collaborates.
I have it right, I'm writing it as
Yeah,
we speak.
exactly.
Yeah.
Collaborates well with, you know, yeah, the other staff to maintain whatever. But Cindy's working on it.
I think that would be very helpful.
I would just want to make sure that you're still working for the board,
Yes.
though, right? That
Yes.
you're our attorney who, when we lend you, so to speak,
Right.
to the staff when needed, but you're still our.
And on things like that, I
Mhm.
think that Mr. Dye's firm has traditionally sent us a bill. If
Oh,
we
really?
have a separate matter outside of board work
Okay.
that's assigned to them. For example, easements come to mind, negotiating land contracts, that kind of thing. That's done separately from the board, then we would get a bill for that and pay him accordingly.
Learn something every day. How about that? The other concern I have in looking about this, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, it could read something like collaborates with district legal department and staff with intersectional, not, intersectional,
Intersectional.
sorry about that,
That's not my
intersectional issues.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? That,
Yes.
well, that didn't come out good. Okay. Do you know what I'm saying? Like if we're working on property and there's something that he needs to look at for us and make sure things are lined out for us as board members, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, change the word, obviously, because it didn't work well.
Intersecting?
Yeah, right, when issues intersect.
There
How's
you go.
that?
That works.
There you go.
Yeah.
Very good.
How you doing, Ms. Frey?
Yeah,
I don't want to
yeah,
interrupt you. Okay.
yeah, I just wanted to bring that up.
And then on page 2 of 3, under the professional services, number 2 there, represents the board at administrative hearings and including appeals. Do you do that? You don't do that, do you?
Which one
I'm
are you?
sorry.
on? Sorry.
Now we're at page 2
Well-
of 2. Professional services, number 2, represents the board at administrative hearings, including appeals. When I read that, I think you go to DOA and you
Right.
represent, but you haven't been doing that kind of thing, have you? Or
Primarily, that's done outside counsel now.
But, and what if we as a board needed
Yes.
administrative hearing?
Yes, when we have an appeal that's actually a board appeal, that would be accurate. But in litigation, we use outside counsel.
So what does that exactly refer to then? Represents the board in administrative hearings.
But I thought
So-
that'd be more like if the board itself is under a lawsuit, not the
Well,
school district.
So the way that traditionally, and at least in my practice and with other districts, board counsel would sit as your counsel in an administrative hearing where you're hearing a final order. So something that's gone to DOA, you get a recommended order back. I represent, or outside counsel would represent the superintendent and the administration part of that. and we create a barrier between board counsel and general counsel's office. We don't collaborate on those, and then when that comes back for a final hearing before the board, Mr. Dye represents the board, I represent the district. That's one way, just one way that would work.
Okay,
And during those processes, I still act as your attorney.
yes, okay. So this doesn't mean that you go up to sit at DOE hearings and stuff like that?
Right, no.
No, you're just represent, like, you know, we're gonna have one apparently coming up here with a particular personnel action, and there will be a difference between the school board, the school system attorney, which is you, Mr. Penley, and then you as our attorney, right?
Correct.
Okay, and that'll be a final hearing based on a certain employment action that will eventually
Yeah.
take place. Okay, that clarifies that a little bit, and that helps me then to make a better evaluation as I'm making the evaluation, so I understand exactly what we're talking about. Okay, great. That's all I have.
Anybody else? Yeah? No?
Nope.
Cool. All right, and are we good with November?
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
I'd
think
rather,
it's more
I
like
would
a
rather have
January-
that.
I think the contract's more like January, December. We give it back to you, we give it to you in late November and then we do a new contract
Yeah.
if we want to in December for the next year.
I like to having a gap between the superintendent and the board. Yeah.
The only thing is we want it done probably before before our reorg meeting, right? In the sense that we wouldn't want new board members to be, was that a problem last year? Did
No, you had it done before I
We
came
had
on.
it done before the new board was seated.
Yeah.
Just to make the point that it should be done.
During
before-
election time, yeah.
Before the reorg meeting, so that new board members don't have to write evaluation, someone they've
Yeah.
never worked with.
Or
Right.
just the election years.
Just
It's just
Yeah.
election year, that would be applicable too.
Yeah,
but-
that makes sense. Okay. Cool. Alrighty, T. Everything good on that topic? That's what I saw. Alright, great. I
So this
believe,
is November.
we're done.
All right.
So,
I don't know who has this.
thank you guys again. Appreciate it. And, we'll be next meeting April 29th, right?
Ninth, yes.
April 29th. Alright, everybody be safe till then. We are adjourned.
Special counsel for intersection.
Yeah, we don't do that here. This is Florida, guy.
Is that tree?